A university don says Cameroonians should abandon the British heritage as far as Anglophone Cameroon is concerned, and the French heritage as far as French Cameroon is concerned, and work for a unique identity. Professor Maurice Kamto was speaking on La Vérité en Face yesterday, talking about the 4-year-long Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. And President Paul Biya's country is now topping the COVID-19 chart in sub-Saharan Africa, and the COVID-19 figures have continued rising in the Republic of Cameroon, while public authorities are urging Cameroonians to scrupulously respect the anti-COVID-19 measures of the government and the sanitation rules of the World Health Organization. One of the staunch human rights defenders in in Cameroon has quit the stage. I'm talking about the president of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, Dr. Chimuta Divine Banda, who is no more. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. A university don in the Republic of Cameroon has said that the heritage left behind by colonial masters in the two parts of the Republic of Cameroon, the English part and the French parts of the country, by the British and the French respectively, is what is causing all the chaos in the country, notably in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. And he's saying that the problem can be solved if all Cameroonians abandon the British heritage in Anglophone Cameroon and the French heritage in French-speaking Cameroon, and work considering the two differences, or the differences between the two parts of the country, and work for a united and a unique identity. There's going to be a return to peace in the Republic of Cameroon. He was speaking yesterday on La Vérité en Face on Equinoxe Television. Take a listen to Professor Maurice Kamto.
Heritage. The Anglo-Saxon heritage. What is the Anglo-Saxon heritage? Can we be proud of a colonial heritage? I'm not claiming any colonial heritage. I'm a Cameroonian, full stop. And now, taking into account the colonization by the British and the colonization by the French, how are we going as Cameroonian now to build a space taking into account this double heritage to build our new identity?
Professor Maurice Kamto, university don, urging Cameroonians to work for a new identity, taking into account the double heritage from the British and the French respectively. He was speaking on La Vérité en Face yesterday, and one of those who have been very vocal on national issues affecting Cameroon, notably the Anglophone crisis, Dr. Chimuta Divine Banda, president of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, is no more. Dr. Chimuta Divine Banda died in a private clinic in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé. Today, he has been sick, according to family sources, since the 7th of May 2020, and he died of ill health today at the in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Now take a listen to one of his recent statements on the Anglophone crisis.
For all Cameroonians and for this commission, I think it's a return to a state of normalcy. Returning to a state of normalcy where people live without fear of being attacked at any moment. There are parts of this country in which there is rampant killing, there's warfare going on, and we only pray that the call for disarmament could be, and the practice of that disarmament could be effective. And concerning disarmament, demobilization and rehabilitation, we think that if that disarmament, demobilization, and rehabilitation is done in a spirit of reconciliation, that will be good. In the spirit of reconciliation will be seen if those who obey the call and come back are treated the way that we've heard leading authorities saying that when they come back they will be treated properly, they will be protected, they will not be harassed. And if it is done in that spirit of reconciliation, then we think that the criticisms of concerning timing, concerning sequencing, whether we should come before what, does not really matter. If people cooperate and will come back to a state of normalcy, that will be good for everybody.
Dr. Chimuta Divine Banda, President of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, will be paying tribute to him in the later part of this newscast. On to something else now. Opposition politicians have said that the closure of the Mario Clinic here in Douala by the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, is an act of repression, and the Social Democratic Front and Cameroon Renaissance Movement (CRM) politicians think that there are other sanctions, other measures that could have been taken by the administrative authority instead of closing that health amenities that was serving the public. However, opposition or politicians of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement think that the minister's action is justifiable. Innocent as a Hasmo.
Following the closure of the Mario Clinic in Douala upon instruction of Minister of Public Health, political actors animated droit de réponse with differing opinions. According to the CRM communicator, Tayong Elvis, the minister should have given other sanctions and not total closure due to the fact that COVID-19 patients were being treated
under the minister's instructions. Now, whether that center was accredited to carry on with cases, COVID cases or not, the main issue here is that when you take decisions, you take into consideration accompanying measures. Fire, we don't even know what the minister is talking about. Ce n'est pas centre agréé. It's not a legalized center. From a legalized center, it is not a center that is that has been accepted equally for the COVID-19, and at the same time they did not respond to your letter. Whereas at the same time, you had equally notified the National Order of Medicines of doctors, who equally had carried out some investigation and some findings, to which Dr. Angula had equally responded to them as to why the situation is the way it is.
On te dit, l'État est là pour accompagner.
To Jean-Robert Wafo of the SDF, the state should accompany and help outstanding clinics like Mario, treating COVID-19 patients and not condemning with emotions and repression whether or not the clinic is legalized.
Cet argument de centre agréé, ça ne tient pas du tout. Ça ne saurait même d'ailleurs tenir.
He knows that at this moment, legality should not even be talked about, but the quality care given patients and the disciplined attitudes of health personnel who stick to measures and are in possession of required tests and treatment equipment.
Ainsi que les mesures barrières. Et l'essentiel, c'est quoi? C'est qu'ils s'en sortent bien.
That a lot of political manipulation surround the closure of the clinic.
On a comme l'impression qu'on a préparé l'opinion. Et manipulation sur fond d'enfumage.
Il y a des sujets sur lesquels nous sommes tous unanimement d'accord.
CPDM communicator Barrister Joseph Claude Biliga takes sides with the opposition, acknowledging that it was wrong to close the health unit without dispositions taken for the COVID-19 patients, which resulted to death of one at the legalized Douala Lakentini Hospital for lack of oxygen.
Et il a choisi.
He, however, says the fact that the CPDM minister infringed the director of the clinic being a CPDM militant is clear indication government does not politicize the COVID-19 fight.
L'État a quand même joué son rôle de protecteur de la nation.
A statement argued by CRM's Tayong Elvis, who strongly believes government politicizes.
Government is at the center of politicizing it. Yaoundé is at the center. Why do I say so? What will it profit a government that knows that COVID-19 is serious, but pretend as if it can handle it alone? I say alone. That's the impression they have from Yaoundé, that we are capable, we have all it takes.
Same idea supported by Jean-Robert Wafo of the SDF.
Il y a eu des faits incroyables avant cette fermeture.
While adamant government is not politicizing, the CPDM communicator, Barrister Joseph Claude Biliga, reaffirms whether legal or not, all needs to work as one to contain the coronavirus.
Qu'on peut contester. Entièrement d'accord.
If the Marie O clinic was closed, therefore, the Minister of Public Health found it faulty with fraudulent activities, while treatment was supposed to be free, and also failure to respond to the minister's letter on collection of 6 million francs CFA from a patient and 14 million francs CFA from a foreigner being a COVID-19 patient.
Le ministre a des éléments qui lui permettent de prendre une décision.
According to Jean-Robert Wafo of the SDF and the Tayong Elvis of the CRM, this is unfounded.
Why was it necessary for the Minister of Public Health to hurry?
Cameroon is now among the most affected sub-Saharan African countries, or the countries most affected by the coronavirus. This is emerging from the World Health Organization, which indicates that Cameroon is now second in sub-Saharan Africa. As far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned, the figures have continued rising over the weeks in the Republic of Cameroon. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
This updates published by the Johns Hopkins University says 85,639 persons have been infected with the coronavirus in Africa. Cameroon has been ranked as the second hardest hit country in sub-Saharan Africa, with it recording a total of 3,105 cases, 1,567 recovered cases, and 140 deaths. According to the country director at the United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, Savina Amarsari, despite the measures taken by the government of Cameroon to combat the virus, the country is still facing some constraints, such as the scarcity of test kits and ventilators, inadequate personal equipment for medical staff, and the non-respect of barrier measures, such as the wearing of face masks and the social distancing rule. Health experts, one of them being the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, have expressed worries about COVID-19 in Africa because many of the healthcare systems in the continent lack basic equipment, funding, insufficient training of health workers, and inefficient data transmission, thus raising fears that the pandemic could be difficult to control in the continent. Another school of thought says that the experience of battling the Ebola virus made some countries better prepared to fight the disease.
He undertook an initiative known as Suivi Cameroon Survival Initiative to help in the fight against coronavirus in the country by raising funds to assist government in the struggle to contain the virus. But that initiative was qualified as illegal by the Minister of Territorial Administration, Atanga, who called for an end to that initiative because it did not seek for authorization from his ministry. He was at the Ministry of Public Health to offer COVID-19 materials, and the materials were not received. He was rather asked to go to the Ministry of Territorial Administration, and today he was there, but he was not received. Professor Maurice Kamto, National President of the CRM political party and leader of the initiative, Suivi Cameroon Survival Initiative. He was at the Ministry of Territorial Administration today, but he wasn't received, and he went further distributing masks and other COVID-19 materials, including hand sanitizers at the Mokul market in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Today, should be recalled that some persons who were working for that initiative were arrested in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, and detained. And the ministers of the Republic, Public Health and Territorial Administration are yet to receive the aid from the Suivi Cameroon Survival Initiative to help in the fight against the coronavirus. In the meantime, the over 2 million masks made available by the President of the Republic of Cameroon for vulnerable persons in the country is being distributed or dispatched to the 10 regions of the country. The littoral region received its own share today. The governor, Samuel Dedoneva Hadibua, received the face mask from the President of the Republic in Bonanjo here in Douala today, and the face mask will be distributed to vulnerable persons within the region. Take a listen to Governor Samuel Dedoneva Hadibua in this extract.
The head of state has given a gift. We received some of them last week or 2 weeks ago, but now he is still asking the Minister of Territorial Administration to make an effort again to make people that are on bicycle, that are on vehicle, that are on the market to wear those masks. But you have seen that in the littoral region. Let me say, a huge part of people are wearing, but some of them are joking. When they see the authorities, they just wear masks, but when you pass, after you, they remove them. It's not a joke against the government, but it's a joke against the deaf. So I'm asking people to be serious and to have a kind of responsibility. They have to be disciplined. And I'm asking every one of us to sensitize those populations within the market, within shops, within the place where people can be gathered, and to respect all the other rules that head of state has given to us.
And the other COVID-19 materials offered by the President of the Republic of Cameroon are equally being distributed across the region. Face masks and hand sanitizers were distributed recently in Tombel in the southwest region of the country. But the people in Tombel have been complaining that the presidential aid is grossly insufficient compared to the population expected to receive. Details with Immaculate Fogwe.
Trucks loaded with President Paul Biya's material assistance heading to Tombel in the Kupe-Manuguba Division, southwest region of Cameroon. The gifts, which consist of hand sanitizers, mobile taps, buckets, face masks and other sanitary kits, are meant to assist these locals. The population of Tombel have been badly hit by the over 3 years Anglophone crisis, which is having a devastating impact on the economic strength of the people. According to the divisional officer for Tombel, the gifts are meant to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus in the area.
Giving these items is like a wake-up call to the population that the COVID-19 is not yet over, and the measures that have been enacted by government must be scrupulously respected. And I mean by these measures, I mean that the wearing of masks is an obligation, and nobody should appear in any public place without a mask. We do hope that our chiefs who are here representing the population, they will take the items and then share back equitably as they are supposed to do. Of course,
though a lot of them expressed joy while receiving President Paul Biya's material assistance, others think a lot more has to be done by the government as far as mitigating the spread of the coronavirus is concerned.
We are happy that the head of state has come to us. That we are saying that we are pleading that the material sent this subdivision are a bit insufficient because not all villages are represented here, and the mass of the people are living in the peripheries. So we are praying that next time the people who are on the ground to do the facilitation should do it better than this. But we're happy. We're happy.
The head of state, Paul Biya, had offered gifts worth 2 billion CFA francs to 360 subdivisions in Cameroon to help tackle the coronavirus pandemic.
And some vulnerable persons have been complaining that they are neglected persons living with disabilities think that the government of Cameroon is sidelining them in its anti-COVID-19 strategy and other issues of national interest. And this is why the government of Cameroon, through the Ministry of Social Affairs, wants to step up the local and national inclusion of people living with disabilities in all aspects of life. And to attain this goal, the ministry is working with local partners, including the Cameroon Baptist Convention, CBC Health Services, and in the conflict-hit northwest region of the country, mayors have been impacted with the skills and means to include this category of people in their local community development, according to the CBC Health Services, speaking during partnership signing with the signing of a memorandum of understanding in Yaoundé. The minister Pauline Irene Nguine outlined the importance of including disabled persons. Take a listen to the minister in this extract selected by Fomi Armstrong Sander.
The goal is to improve the well-being of persons with disability. So we're working informally, and you know that we are an institution and we are an organization international. So it would be better for us to formalize this partnership, because if they have benefit for our social and institutional support, this has to be formalized. That's why we thought not only the goal is to improve the well-being of persons with disability, but the purpose is to foster collaboration, to facilitate development of strategy, to mainstream disability in local and national development efforts.
Informally, we have worked with this with the Baptist Convention Health Services for long now. They have been supporting us. They have been maybe letting Minas know that they are there to take care of persons living with disabilities. And you know, the Ministry of Social Affairs is the overall administration that takes care of persons living with disabilities, but the ministry cannot be everywhere at every time. The ministry is there for the policies and we implement at our level, but the Baptist Convention Health Services, they go further than we can go. They take care of this of persons living with disabilities. They have specific programs for these people, and we are so happy that today we have come together so that we can work hand in hand with the Baptist Convention Health Services to better the situation of persons living with disabilities.
Cameroon's Minister of Social Affairs, Irene Pauline Nguine, and Angelina Mundi, Director of Social Affairs at the Ministry of Social Affairs, speaking there. And in the following extract, we're bringing to you some details on the challenges faced by persons living with disabilities in Cameroon. Take a listen to Aga Glory, Program Manager, Empowerment and Disability Inclusive Program of the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services. Take a listen.
CBC Health Services has been providing services to persons with disabilities since the 1950s, and normally we cannot do it alone, and primarily we know that it is the government's responsibility to take care of the socially vulnerable and the underprivileged members of our society. And so the CBC has been working in that line to support the government in this effort to be able to reach out to persons with disabilities, to make their voices heard, and then to call also on the development actors to mainstream disability in all their development endeavors. And so, talking about the challenges, the CBC Health Services, as you heard from the director's speech, has been able to reach to a total of 9 out of the 10 regions of Cameroon. We still have one region, that is the south, in which we have not yet been there. But even in these 9 regions, where we are, we have not been able to reach out to all persons with disabilities in the community, because in as much as we have the committed staff in doing the work, but we cannot have all the capacity to sustain the staff throughout to be able to reach out to all persons with disabilities in the communities. And that is why we want this partnership, so that we can be able to work with the government structures in place to reach out to even more persons with disabilities in the community.
Young people in the Botaland in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon have gone on a rampage against what they qualify as excessive administrative interference in traditional matters and other issues affecting the locality. They went protesting in front of the administrative office of the locality, demanding that the administration should withdraw its hands on some of the matters of the land. Details with Davidson Maimu.
The villagers of Botaland village in Limbe 2 subdivision came out in their numbers, carrying placards with various messages in front of the DO's office at Mukundange, headquarters of Limbe 2 subdivision, on a peaceful protest, what they call the interference of the administration with the traditional management of their village.
We can't tell DOC as my son with the placard. May move your hand for our village for problem. If you want to put your hand, may put them for peace. Yes, may not put your hand for problem. But in Botala, we remember Botaland. All the whole world know we. Yes, we know the change.
In our village, our councillors or the traditional council is being formed by the 3 family heads, which of course not the administrators who impose on us who is to be the councillors.
The high go beat today say na deal. He tell we say this man and this man and this man. Now them be our family our quarter heads.
The villagers say the chief is misleading the administration, all in his personal interest, accusing the chief of denying their own share of land surrender to the village by government, thus advocating the chief should be dethroned by the administration.
For the past 7 years, our village has been suffering. Our chief has sold our land called Njulu and the surrendered land the CDC gave us. We have been writing to the administrators right in Yaoundé, and no approval or no signals have been given to our cry.
We Botaland people now will be elected. We don't talk against it. We know one thing because it is mismanage our properties. We
don't need to be again. We need new chief at the line.
They were told at the DO's office that the divisional officer is out for other state imperatives. Sources at the DO's office say the administration had nothing to do with the putting in place of family or quarter head, as the administration only work with list presented by the recognized chief of the village. Every effort for this reporter to speak to the chief was unsuccessful. It should be noted that it is not the first time villagers of Botaland are protesting against their chief, all related to land surrender to the community by the state through the Cameroon Development Corporation, the CDC.
Coming up, we're taking you to the Japuman neighborhood in the Douala 3 subdivision, where several inhabitants are living with a permanent risk of landslide as a result of erosion that has dug very deep holes around their homes. Details with Smart Jake and Gabriel. For me, I'm Strong Sander, rather with that report on people who are living in the Japoma neighborhood in the Douala 3 subdivision at the risk of a landslide as a result of an erosion that has been creating very deep holes around their homes in that part of Cameroon's economic capital. For me, Armstrong Sander with the details.
We are at a place known as Conteneur Rouge in Japoma in the Douala 3 subdivision, where inhabitants live a veritable nightmare. In this neighborhood is a ravine, a veritable threat to their lives, houses and properties. But listen, it wasn't a situation 2 years ago. Inhabitants say what existed here was a footpath linking houses in the neighborhood to the loan school that exists in the area.
Comme vous voyez, c'était une grande route qui montait à
The nightmare, call it a growing monster, began with the construction of the road linking the Japoma Sports Complex through Japoma to the rest of the city of Douala. Runoff from across Japoma was diverted to the little path that existed here, resulting to high waves when it rains, intense erosion and consequently the unbearable ravine here present.
If the government does not help us, we will not know what to do. We suffer to raise these houses with the hope to raise our families here forever. Unfortunately today, we are seen trying to save the houses from being carried away to no avail. We need help.
Le ciment, ça ne donne pas. On met les piquets, ça ne donne pas. Le gouvernement ne sait pas ce qu'ils attendent. Nous sommes démunis.
Several houses in the area have been abandoned by owners who have opted to save their lives over the houses they've worked hard to build.
When it rains, the whole neighborhood is on high alert. No one can sleep. Everyone is afraid that their houses can be swept away.
Nous tous nous sommes dehors de peur que ça peut se casser directement, il peut y avoir glissement.
Avec les petits enfants comme ça, ils ne savent même pas comment ils veulent faire. Nous sommes foutus. Hein?
Look at the little children I have. What will I do with them? All my life saving was used to build this house, and now we can't live there because of the rains. The river is steadily eating up the foundation of our house, and with the coming rains, we do not know what to do again.
Nous sommes morts ici là.
With the heavy rains announcing across the economic capital city, Douala, the helpless inhabitants are calling on competent authorities to save them from the looming danger.
That's the end of the first part of the newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thanks for staying with us in Talking Point. Our guest today, Professor Henry Fomundem, is a public health and pharmaceutical care expert with several years of international experience. He has worked in various capacities in the African region for the last 18 years. He has also been working for the Howard University, Washington, D.C., United States of America for the past 15 years. And since 2005, he has been the regional director of the Howard University Global Initiative. He is currently an associate professor at the Howard University and was appointed extraordinary professor at the Stellenbosch University, Cape Town, South Africa. He's joining us right away from South Africa. You're welcome, Professor. All right, Professor, thanks for joining us today. Professor Henry Fomundem, what is your take on the evolution of the COVID-19 pandemic, precisely on the African continent today? Cameroon is second. Your home country is second on the COVID-19 chart in sub-Saharan Africa. What do you think about this?
Well, let me start by thanking you and your televiewers for the opportunity to come and interface on this pandemic that has been very critical and has been keeping some of us and many other people very busy. My take on it is that it took the world unawares, and I think all the efforts are coming together to make sure that we can at least start with prevention, which is always better than cure, but at the same time looking at what treatment modalities we may have. And the continent in Africa, which I've worked in so many countries, I dare to say that they're doing very well in a pandemic that takes place on a continent where the healthcare infrastructure is very, very wanting in many ways. And my work has been in the area of HIV, and for many years, the infrastructure was even worse than that. And so dealing with such an epidemic, I could see some of the African countries struggling, but making enough progress. And I've been keeping up with what is happening in Cameroon to an extent. And I think from the perspective of the Ministry of Health and Government, it's been going very well. But what I see with the population of Cameroon, the prevention measures, I think there's something that needs to be done a little more than what is being done right now, because I see people, I don't see the physical distancing or the social distancing, if you want to call it. And so I see a lot of people not actually using their face masks properly. And these are all very challenging situations that in South Africa, where I am, there are 15,000 plus cases that have tested positive. And so I'm very concerned with how the prevention efforts are going in Cameroon.
How well is the COVID-19 pandemic managed in South Africa?
Well, South Africa has a much better infrastructure compared to several African countries, probably has one of the best. But South Africa is a very unique country on this continent because it's a two-world living in one country. It's a very developed country in one part, and in the other part, it's much less developed. And so you have the townships where it's mostly the blacks who are living in the townships. We were on level 5 lockdown, which is a total lockdown. Total lockdown means the only places that are open would be the hospital, the pharmacy, the grocery shop. It's left from level 5 to level 4. And so in some of the very affluent areas, it's been well respected, but in the black neighborhoods, which is the townships, we're having some of the challenges that I just described in Cameroon, where you have people walking around without a mask, and it's very challenging because some of those areas, you have people who live on a day-to-day basis. They need to drive a taxi, they need to sell some food stuff, tomatoes, in order to get something to eat at the end of the day. So it's very difficult for such people to comply. And so what South Africa did as a country was to put together food packages for some of these people that have those kind of challenges. But we see that it's still a rise in the people that are being confirmed positive. Quite a good number of people are also recovering from it. And so the government is, because they have the resources, they're actually staying on top of this.
When you look at how the government of South Africa is managing the pandemic, when you look at what is happening in countries like Senegal, in countries like Ivory Coast, and even in neighboring Nigeria, the way the COVID-19 pandemic is managed in these countries, do you think that the government of Cameroon is at its best, or there's still more that has to be done in order to stop the COVID-19 figures from rising in Cameroon?
Well, there is always room for improvement, and I just described a scenario in Cameroon which is a little bit uncomfortable, and that is that of prevention. I think it should be focusing more on actually on educating the people, working through the masses, working through the structures that you have, particularly in rural areas where you have to be able to have structures on the ground. You have perhaps in places like Northwest, Southwest, where you have the chiefs, you have to be able to work through those structures that are existing. And then in the urban areas, you have to look for means to be able to make sure that you're actually educating the people, because healthcare education is very important. And if you try to do a government top-down approach, a lot of people enjoy defying the government throughout the world. So it's a matter of educating them that it's about their health. And I think some of the measures that the government has put together are very sound and very good. But how do you ensure that people comply with that? That's always the challenge. And I think it lies within the health promotion, health education. And I think the Ministry of Health is doing a lot, but they need to do a lot more than what they're doing right now.
And the President of the Republic has made available over 2 million masks for the vulnerable persons in the society, and he has also disbursed over 2 billion francs CFA for the provision of some anti-COVID-19 materials to Cameroonians across the 10 regions of the country. Are these laudable initiatives?
They are. They are, and it's something to congratulate him for putting that to the public. But putting it to the public, it's one thing. So part one or phase one has been properly done. Phase two is to get the people to use it, to comply with it, and that's what has not been done properly. Because if you see people in the markets, which I've seen on some of the programs, I've seen on the social media, you still don't see them being very careful. You don't see them complying. So putting that together, putting the materials, the PPEs, and everything that you need to put together, it's one step. But the other step is getting the people to use it. And I think that's where we still have a lot of work that we need to do in Cameroon. I do a lot of work in Zambia too, and it's a similar thing that we see in Zambia, but I want to say what I see in Cameroon is a little bit worse than what I see in some of the other countries, which means all of us have to put hands on the deck and make sure that it's not only government. Government is one arm of it. It has to be able to partner with people in different groups that are existing in the villages, in the cities. You have women's groups, you have the youth groups, everywhere that you see. And in the Momo Division area where I come from, I'm part of a team within the Meta region that is trying to see how do you manage this in a village setting. And so I joined them on the phone to be able to give ideas and suggestions how we can convince even people in a rural area to be able to keep up and be able to use the mask properly. That's number one. Use it consistently. That's number two. Hand sanitizers. How do you actually convince them to be able to use it? The most important thing is the health education. Making sure that they in turn believe in what you're telling them, so they understand and then believe in what you're telling them.
But there's some health experts like you who think that the government or the head of state could have done better instead of what has been done. Should have simply, for example, improved on health infrastructures across the country. Reduce the cost of face masks, for example, in Chad is about 200 francs, subsidized by the government, of course. And while the head of state is dispersing 2 billion francs CFA for this, and then putting 1 billion in the special fund for the fight against coronavirus, other countries like Senegal, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Nigeria are dispersing, more than 10 times or 20 times that amount for the fight against coronavirus.
I think that's a good question, good observation. I would think a little bit differently in terms of what has been put together now. Are we saying that it's inadequate? I don't think we're at that level of saying it's inadequate yet. I think in terms of the numbers, the quantities, I think what we should be saying is that what has been put to the disposal of the entire population, are we very efficient and very effective in the way we use it? And I think the answer is no. So putting more as in terms of quantity, that doesn't address the question. No, we would be able to make that point very confidently if what has been put to the disposal of the population has been adequately used the way it should be used. Then you can make a good point to say, we have this in place and we need more. Then at that point, you'll be able to point fingers to say, what we got was not adequate. But take a look at it. And in terms of people moving in the cities and the markets in Douala, in all of these places, what they actually have is a lot of the people are either not wearing a mask or wearing it very wrongly, which means it's under their chin, which means we should actually be calling it a chin mask. So giving somebody a lot more than that when they're using it wrongly, it's not going to help. In Italy, for example, what they did with the population is they gave them, make sure that everybody has about 4 or 5 masks. They teach them how to wash it, and they label them. They come to them, label 1, 2, 3, 4. So you use one, and then you come and put it, you wash it, they teach you how to wash it, you keep it for more than 24 hours, and then you go to number 2. By the time you recycle to come to number 4, the number 1, you must have been sitting on your counter for like maybe a couple of days. So that kind of teaching is what we want to see people engage in Cameroon. Then if they use it properly, then our next phase is to say, we need more. But for now, instead of pointing fingers, which is what I see a lot of people do in the communities, they should be advising people. They should look for ways to be able to guide people on how to use the mask properly, on how to wash their hands. And the social distancing or physical distancing issue, it's pathetic in some of the things. In the market, people don't care. I just watched a video on social media this evening where people were at a burial. They were all dancing. They were all hugging each other. How does the quantity of mask and hand sanitizer address that? It's not going to. So we're not doing very well in terms of the health promotion, the health messages, and convincing the people.
Professor, let's talk about African traditional medicine. There is an ongoing debate on the use of African traditional medicine to cure COVID-19 patients. In Madagascar, the head of state says, we got the cure, we have the cure, COVID organics. And in Cameroon, His Lordship, or His Grace, Samuel Clay, the Archbishop of the Douala Metropolitan National Diocese of the Roman Catholic Church, says he has treated hundreds of persons with herbs. But there is an ongoing debate with the World Health Organization warning against the use of untested treatments for COVID-19. What do you think about this?
Right. Okay. That's a very important question, and the work that I do in several African countries, we come across this. This is not new, but this is what I have to say, which is very important, and I hope some of the people can listen to this very carefully. Now, traditional medicine, it's part of the healthcare system. It's part of our culture. They call it traditional medicine because in a lot of settings it's been handed over from generation to generation. The problem that we have with traditional medicine is that it is not keeping up with time. Just like the example that I always use is that we, in the past, many years, 200 years ago, the way the chief calls people to come to a meeting is to play a gong. And everybody would know that the chief wants us to come. But technology has evolved. We all have cell phones, including the chiefs, the traditional healers. Everybody has a cell phone, which means we've accepted the technology as we go forward. Now, in traditional medicine, it makes it not as popular, not as beneficial as it should be, both to humanity and at the same time making sure that it's profitable. So we're lagging behind seriously because we come up with medications which are from traditional healers and it has no evidence. If you have medication that you're using for a particular disease and there's no evidence, it means it's only going to remain within your village where people will look up to you and say you're a traditional healer, you have medication for something. And there's no evidence that it works. Now, with some of the medications that you've spoken about in Madagascar, there are medications.
Professor Henry Fomundam, a public health and pharmaceutical care expert joining us from South Africa. He was talking about African traditional medicine. We'll certainly be coming back to you, Prof, for greater details on this in our subsequent news edition. And we are wrapping up this news edition with tribute to Dr. Chimuta Divine Banda, President of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms. Goodbye.